I want you to keep watching CVM TV, be inspired, be informed, right? See it happen right here on CVM TV. Morgue and Heritage till the year 3000 and beyond. Grams Morgan say that. See it? Blessings.
CVM News at 7 Wednesday headlines, courtesy of Heart NSDA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Tonight in CVM News at 7, Tasha Miller pleads not guilty. 100 set to testify in Clansman trial, including 2 alleged former members. Government spending up nearly $14 billion as 4th supplementary estimates tabled. Disaster relief procurement breaches? Minister Vaz refutes AG report. In the business report, Cygnus Capital Investments record growth in 2025. While in sports, Windies head into T20 World Cup on a losing note after warm-up loss to Afghanistan.
CVM News at 7 Wednesday headlines, courtesy of Heart NSDA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. It's Wednesday, February 4, 2026. I'm Nika Lewis. Thank you so much for joining us. First up this evening, 2 former members of the Clansman gang are set to testify as key witnesses for the Crown in the trial of alleged gang leader Tasha Miller and his 24 co-accused, which is now underway in the Home Circuit Court Division of the Supreme Court in downtown Kingston. The witnesses both expected to give evidence under witness protection arrangements. Well, Carla Ramdeen was in court and she takes us right back there right now. Carla.
The Clansman trial is now underway for Tasha Miller and his 24 co-accused. Now, they all pleaded not guilty on all counts, including the second count of indictment for being part of a criminal organization. According to the prosecution, the importance of these witnesses lies in their own involvement in the alleged crimes. As a result, the prosecution acknowledged that the credibility of the primary witnesses be a central issue for the court to determine. Prosecutors call for the judge to approach the evidence with appropriate degree of caution, stressing that careful scrutiny of the witnesses' account will be essential in resolving the case. The prosecution has identified Tasha Miller as the primary leader of a criminal organization, while stating that the other 24 co-accused were active participants or associates. In outlining its case, the prosecution said the organization operated in a decentralized manner, allowing it to continue functioning even while Miller was in custody. Prosecutors argued that this structure meant members were able to act independently, rather than relying on direct instructions from a single leader. The defense is urging the prosecution for a full disclosure of evidence on a timely manner to adequately prepare their defense. To facilitate this process, the presiding judge mandated that the first set of witnesses' names be presented on a weekly basis. Now, the first witness for the prosecution has begun testifying and will continue to testify tomorrow.
All right, so Carla Ramdeen was in court and she's now in studio telling us a little bit more of what was happening beyond what we saw just now. Carla, your first time in court, what was it like?
Thank you, Nika. First, on arriving, it was very clear that this was a high-profile case. Security forces were outside. The court was barred off. The roads were barred off. On entering, Mr. Miller was there. He was in white, seemed very composed, very settled. Even when he was given his plea, he was seemed to be very assertive. And so along the proceedings, when the prosecution was presenting their case, he just listened and simply gave a nod here and there and seemed to be very composed. Now, the proceedings, we're going to have 100 witnesses testified, and so I think I'm going to be there writing and getting all the reports to present to CVM. So we're going to hear what the prosecution have to say, and also the defense. The defense was very clear on the presentation of evidence, of disclosure of evidence. We have some outstanding evidence from the prosecution, and the judge, in my report, as you heard, made it clear that these were supposed to be handed in a timely manner.
All right, so long days ahead for you. All right, well, we look forward to it, Carla. All the best in court.
Thank you.
For now, 4 murders in 25 hours last weekend have forced police in Manchester to step up operations to mitigate any escalation in the parish. Even as national crime figures continue to trend downward, the murders in the usually quiet parish raised eyebrows. Kevin Black tells us more.
Marked a historic moment for Jamaica's crime statistics with just 33 murders, a 55% reduction when compared to January 2025 when 74 murders were recorded. It means 41 lives were spared, and it was the lowest January figure in 25 years and the lowest monthly total since systematic records began in 2001. Superintendent Kerry Duncan is commanding officer for the Manchester Police Division.
We have a very unfortunate incident that occurred between January 31st and February 1st, where we had 3 incidents that resulted in 4 deaths within the parish. This is very unusual for us, as up to that time, since 2026, as a matter of fact, since late December of 2025, we had not recorded a single murder in the division. So this certainly was a very unfortunate situation.
But 4 murders in 3 separate incidents in less than 24 hours in Manchester last weekend shattered what had been months of relative calm.
What we recognize is that within these spaces, we have some little puppets who continue to be influenced by persons who are outside of our jurisdiction, settling easily in their own enclaves overseas. And I just want to say to them that what you're doing in our parish, our country, is destroying our peace and tranquility.
In response, the Manchester Police have increased operational presence, imposing curfews in affected areas, ramping up intelligence gathering, and deploying specialized units to prevent further violence.
General Manchester has nothing to be concerned about really at this time. And over where we had those incidents, our operational tempo has been up in those areas. As a matter of fact, we have been doing our proximity policing in that space. So over there, we're seeing overly influx of police officers from our specialized operations, SWAT units, as also our own local units, just to ensure that we do not have a flare-up over there.
Kevin Black for CVM News.
Now to a CVM News exclusive. The dispute concerning allegedly decomposed bodies at a morgue in St. Thomas contracted by the Princess Margaret Hospital is rekindling. This time, family members say they were refused any chance at a private autopsy and months later received the body deemed unfit for an open casket viewing. The distraught relatives demand intervention from the state, but those accused are refuting the claims. Horror gripped another St. Thomas family in what has become a controversial body storage matter involving the Princess Margaret Hospital and a morgue it hired at the time. And although the hospital and the morgue have since refuted the decomposition claims, relatives insist the state must intervene.
Nobody in Jamaica or over the world should ever go through a situation like this. It is hard to see your loved ones, just waste away like that, I'm calling on the government of Jamaica, please do better than this, man. Mr. Tufton, please, you're the Minister of Health. You got to step in, see what these people are doing.
A plea after her 33-year-old granddaughter Tabika Richards died at the Princess Margaret's Hospital on October 26 last year. Months of trying to get the body for a private autopsy yielded only a letter informing of no clear dates and a list, sympathizing with the family and advising it's a coroner's case since she died the same day she was admitted. Then finally on January 16, 2026, the autopsy and the big reveal.
They do the autopsy on the 16th of January. When my son, my mom went for the autopsy, my daughter comes out with her head covered in a black bag, and whatever sheet wrapped her up, it was brown and liquid coming from her body. Okay, I do my best to get my child buried. I run to, because she buried on a family plot. I went to the parish council to get the go-ahead.
Barrett, who flew in from the UK to arrange the funeral, recalls the horror and trauma the state of the body had on the family, leaving them only 5 days to plan a funeral.
Right now, it's very, very hard for me. It's really, really hard for me as a mother. But you know what? I gotta be strong, and I got to get some justice for my daughter, because she does not deserve this. And like I says, no mother, no father, no sister, no brother deserve this.
Richards was laid to rest on January 25, but without a proper viewing, allegedly owing to the poor condition in which relatives received the body.
The autopsy done on the 16th, and I come from England. I come from England on the 20th of January, and she only had 5 days to get buried from there. So everything got to do rush because she decomposed, and her body could never show in the church. She in her coffin, wrapped up in a white sheet. Her body could not show.
They demand the intervention of the health ministry to bring justice to several families in the parish allegedly impacted in similar ways. Recently, when the matter of poor storage was raised by another family whose teen daughter had passed, the hospital pledged to conduct an investigation, but the funeral service insists none of the bodies stored were decomposed.
Meanwhile, a fourth supplementary estimate for the 2025-2026 financial year was tabled in the House of Representatives on Tuesday, pushing government spending up by nearly $14 billion. Finance Minister Favour Williams says the bulk of the additional allocation will go towards the response and recovery efforts following Hurricane Melissa. Akeem Orit has more.
The additional $14 billion will go towards the government's continued response to Hurricane Melissa.
Madam Speaker, earlier on I gave the background, the rationale as to why we're taking fourth supplementary for central government and a third one for the public bodies. It is to incorporate a total of $14.36 billion of incremental expenditure, of which $13.4 billion relates to Hurricane Melissa expenditure approved by Cabinet subsequent to either the preparation of or the approval of the third supplementary in September of 2025.
Finance Minister Favour Williams told Parliament on Tuesday that additional funds have been allocated to a move aimed at strengthening Jamaica's digital connectivity and resilience.
Madam Speaker, I also pointed out that $960 million represented an initial payment to Transamerica Fiber Systems Limited due upon signing of a letter of intent between that entity and the government of Jamaica to pursue the provision of additional subsea fiber capacity.
She further revealed that the government has already spent approximately $70 billion on relief and recovery efforts linked to Hurricane Melissa. She says the additional spending underscores the government's focus on disaster recovery, infrastructure resilience, and long-term national development. Akeem Oret for CVM News.
There's more news right after the break.
Chicken mega deal, super chicken mega deal.
The KFC value menu has you thinking chicken. Get the chicken box combo for just $680. KFC.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people them I say we are my show tonight. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights on.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Welcome back. There was confusion in the House of Parliament Tuesday morning as members of the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, examined issues surrounding the unauthorized use of a government vehicle and irregularities involving an official government credit card. We hear now from Crystal Williams.
Audit into government management's use of official credit cards found that while regulations and guidelines were in place, there were weaknesses in procurement planning, fleet management, and credit card administration. The audit, which sought to identify any deviations from established standards, revealed that one allegation regarding the use of a government credit card for personal purposes was not substantiated, as no evidence was found. However, the report also notes that management responses and corrective actions were taken before the audit was completed. Clerk to the Houses of Parliament, Colleen Lowe, addressed concerns surrounding the unauthorized use of a government fleet vehicle. She explains that the officer involved was pursuing part-time studies at the University of the West Indies and had experienced an unfortunate personal situation.
This officer was also the victim of crime, having left work late one evening. He was deprived of his personal effects in the downtown area. And it was known to us that he would often stay here until late in the night. And therefore permission was granted to him that he could have access to the vehicle to ensure his safety in those extenuating circumstances.
Despite the explanation, the clerk made it clear that no permission was granted for the vehicle to be used for personal purposes, nor for incorrect entries to be made in the official logbook. She noted, however, that approval was given for the officer to keep the vehicle overnight on occasions when duties extended beyond normal working hours. The committee also examined a major issue involving a government-funded credit card, where an error in the transfer of funds went undetected for 4 months, amounting to 29 million Jamaican dollars. According to the clerk, the erroneous transaction occurred on January 31, 2025, during the tenure of the then Principal Finance Officer, PFO. The current PFO advised the clerk that a letter had been submitted to the bank authorizing payments on the credit card. However, the bank reportedly withdrew more than the amount stated in the cover letter. Julian Robinson is chairman of the PAC.
The Houses of Parliament is hereby requesting that the recurrent expenditure account be debited with the Jamaican equivalent. All right, well, I see why they're confused. Because you said with the Jamaican equivalent, so they would assume the 181 is US. I think this should have been written with more clear, it should have been clearer. And okay, I understand why the error was made. But it still don't explain why it takes so long to pick up the error.
The Integrity Commission has referred 9 investigation reports to the Director of Corruption Prosecution for consideration after close to a dozen public officials failed to file their statutory declarations as required by law. The reports prepared by the Commission's Director of Investigation involve employees and former employees of the Post and Telecommunications Department and the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. Akeem Oret reports.
Investigations conducted by the Director of Investigation at the Integrity Commission have found that several public officials failed without reasonable cause to submit their statutory declarations for the 2023 declaration period. According to the reports, the individuals who were either employed or formerly employed to the Post and Telecommunications Department held positions including branch managers and inspectors and were required by law to file statutory declarations with the Commission. The investigations concluded that these officials were obligated to submit the declarations at the material time and by failing to do so, committed offences under Section 43(1)(a) of the Integrity Commission Act. Similar findings were made in relation to individuals formerly employed to the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission, including an investigator and an accounting clerk, who also failed to file statutory declarations as required. In each case, the Director of Investigation determined that the failure to comply with the statutory requirements constituted a breach of the Integrity Commissions Act. As a result, the Director of Investigation has recommended that all reports be referred to the Director of Corruption Prosecution for further consideration. The Integrity Commission has responsibility for monitoring compliance with statutory declaration requirements, which are intended to promote transparency and accountability within public sector. The individuals include branch managers Victoria Stewart, Cavell Miller, and Valerie Mullings, all employed to the Post and Telecommunications Department. Inspectors Marvet McPherson, Balford Bryan, and Hazel McClymont Donaldson, who are also employed to the Post and Telecommunications Department. Investigators Nikisha Scott, Philip Anderson, and accounting clerk Daniel Jump, all formerly employed to the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. Reporting for CVM News, I'm Akeem Oret.
If I had it to do, I would do it again. That declaration from Telecommunications Minister and co-chair of the Relief and Recovery Oversight Committee, Darrell Vaz, this evening in response to Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis's report, which revealed serious failings in Jamaica's disaster relief management following Hurricane Melissa. The damning 28-page report revealed, among other things, findings that dozens of Starlink devices that were purchased to ensure connectivity in the hardest-hit parishes were never delivered but remained in storage. But Minister Vaz insists no wrongdoing occurred, saying the country was facing a telecommunications crisis with entire parishes cut off and emergency responders unable to communicate. He argues that the actions taken were fully compliant with emergency procurement rules under the Public Procurement Act, which allows expedited decisions during extreme urgency.
There was no breaches of the procurement guidelines, and the documentation that I have released shows that clearly. And secondly, if it is that my timely, effective action as Minister of Telecommunications and co-chair of the Cabinet Subcommittee for the Melissa recovery was beneficial by getting help to those affected persons, whether saving a life, getting food to them, whatever it is, I make no apology whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I go further. In circumstances such as these, if I had to do it again, I would do it again. In response to the opposition statement, I simply say to Philip Paulwell, the leader of the opposition, all members of parliament in the both opposition and government, plus mayors and councillors on both sides were recipients of Starlink.
While the newly established National Payments Company of Jamaica has been selected by the government of Jamaica to deliver controlled digital voucher systems behind the multi-billion-dollar Roofs Housing Recovery Program, the Jamaican financial technology company was created to support national digital payments infrastructure and is now entrusted with powering one of the largest government rebuilding initiatives in the country's history. Crystal Williams has more.
According to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, 50 beneficiaries in the severe damage category have received up to 500,000 Jamaican dollars each through digital vouchers totaling $25 million as of Friday, January 30, 2026. Kibwe Magan, the country manager for the National Payments Company of Jamaica, the entity facilitating these digitally powered vouchers, explains why they are one of the best solutions.
You may ask, why not just give these recipients the cash? So in a previous pilot, the government tried that, and unfortunately, some people use the cash to do other things. One person in particular took a trip to Miami, but that's not the intention or the use of the funds. The whole idea is to rebuild.
A text message with a QR code could be the ticket potential recipients need to redeem their housing relief. It's a closed-looped system, which Mr. Magan insists renders security threats virtually impossible.
MOCA would be doing secret assessments and checking if people redeem the grants and actually started building on their houses. So MOCA will check with the hardware stores. They'll go back and check with locations of people who collected. So even if the hardware were to supposedly be working with somebody and gave someone the false goods, the question of it is whose photo is going to show up, whose ID is going to show up, whose TRN is going to connect all the dots. And once it don't match, then the government doesn't move that money over to the hardware.
Now, the system will require recipients to provide personal data for security purposes, information some people may be unwilling to share.
Well, the Prime Minister answered that question at the launch. He said, well, if you don't want your money, you can leave it. And that's what it is. If you don't want the $500,000 to rebuild your roof, you can leave it.
Crystal Williams reporting for CVM News.
Rising demand for social services in St. Anne has prompted the government to expand the drop-in center in Ocho Rios. Minister of Local Government Desmond McKenzie says additional beds will be added to accommodate more vulnerable people seeking shelter and support. Kevin Black has the details.
The government is expanding services for vulnerable persons in St. Anne as homelessness rises. During a tour of the St. Anne drop-in center in Ocho Rios, Minister of Local Government Desmond McKenzie announced 20 new beds for the facility, which is already operating at full capacity.
We are at the capacity of the facility, both in persons who attend on a daily basis and those who sleep overnight. So we are going to look to increase the numbers by an additional 20 bed spaces. Already we have 21 So when with an additional 20, it will take us to about 41.
Minister Mackenzie says worsening living conditions, including the impacts of Hurricane Melissa, make these shelters essential. The center provides temporary refuge while helping clients regain stability and plan for the future.
Persons with ambition going to UTEC. There is a lawyer at the Desmond Mackenzie Transitional Center in Kingston. And this is an initiative that was introduced by the government at that time to us. All the drop-in centers across the island was built since 2016 by this administration.
The minister also highlighted the importance of coordinated support, praising municipal authorities and social agencies for helping clients regain documents, access services, and rebuild their lives.
So I want to commend the municipality and to commend the administrator, Ms. Prince. She's doing a wonderful job, and I want to thank her for the job on behalf of Prime Minister and the government and the wider centre, and thank you for the job that you have been doing.
Kevin Black reporting for CVM News.
CVM News at 7 continues after the break.
It's 8 a.m. and Mr. Thompson can't find chalk. Or his dignity.
The KFC value menu has you thinking chicken. Get the famous blue combo for just $640.
The time by KFC is 7:30.
It's 8 a.m. and Mr. Thompson can't find chalk. Or his dignity.
Is white squall that?
Meanwhile, on site, error, a mash up concrete. Or so it seems. Wait, I can't embellish that. It's almost that time for Ashley's belly to plop out. Don't get creative with your hunger. Solve it with mothers.
Mommy, ice cream.
Even the little ones get hungry too. Mothers, all day delicious. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Guess what me do? What you do? Me go check me prostate.
No, seriously? Me not do that.
Remember say that pops drop out from me have to take it serious. You can't just do the blood test but better safe than sorry. So me do the full package. Plus the NHF card help pay for the PSA test. Biggs, you're 40 The earlier the better. Cause me know you still want fire on all cylinder.
NHF is here for health. NHF is here for you.
Welcome back. It's now time for the business report with Joel Crosskill.
Lots to share with you in the business report today, as we join the Cygnus Credit Investments SCI annual general meeting for highlights of the company's 2025 financial performance and share key strategies for the year ahead. Executive VP and Chief Investment Officer Cygnus Capital Jason Morris shares the headline numbers.
The company would have generated, for the first time in its history, would have exceeded $15 million in total investment income, coming out to 15.39 million. So you can clap for that. Second point I want to raise here is that similar to last year, the performance was mainly driven by the performance of the investment that SCI did in Puerto Rico. And the Puerto Rico company would have generated in the 2 financial years since the restructuring exercise that would have taken place after the acquisition, 8.85 million in cumulative net profit, which is more than all of the net profit the company would have generated in its first 18 years or so in existence.
The Chief Investments Officer is of the view that the Puerto Rican purchase will continue to be the primary engine for profit for SCI for the foreseeable future.
Accrescent has a massive moat in front of it. It's a $100 billion US economy. It has $100 million US in revolving credit line. And for context, SCI has about $8 million US in revolving credit line. And Accrescent can deploy, when it's fully optimized, I suspect that Accrescent can deploy between 100 to 200 million US in private credit investments once it gets to where we want to get it to per year.
SCI, however, did see a dip in profits.
Despite those exceptional top-line numbers, net profit came out less than expected at $4.28 million, down 29%. In terms of dividends, $3.2 million US was distributed to shareholders, which is the highest dividend over a 12-month period that SCI has ever paid to shareholders. And that, by the way, is the 14th consecutive quarterly dividend, semi-annual dividend, that SCI would have been distributing to shareholders. So whether it's, COVID or whatever other economic conditions, SCI has strived to maintain consistency in terms of paying dividends.
Morris also shared the extent of SCI's portfolio exposure to Hurricane Melissa affected businesses.
We are in infrastructure, financial services, construction, hospitality, manufacturing, telecommunication services, energy storage, healthcare. We have overall portfolio of about 22 different industries in which we are invested in, but SCI itself is invested in about, 8 different industries. 30% of the portfolio is exposed to Jamaica, and in the western part of the island would have been impacted severely by Hurricane Melissa. And we would have shared on the Q1 earnings call that about, 12 point something percent of the overall portfolio was impacted. I think that number might be updated slightly when we present Q2 results.
The executive VP, however, remains buoyant as it relates to outlook.
As of today, that the business license that we were pursuing was approved, and we have the business license in our hand. And therefore, what we are doing now is moving to execute. And the execution of this is also with an international financing partner. In terms of SCI's strategic growth path, the $1 billion that we want to be involved in, we are well on our way, over $500 million.
And that was your business report. I'm Joel Crosskill.
We now turn to regional and international news.
We start with regional news. In Trinidad, Minister in the Ministry of Housing, Anil Roberts, is insisting that all undocumented migrants must be properly registered in the country, mainly for security, accountability, and social protection. Now, this comes as he defends the government's move to commence the migrant registration process, warning that failure to do so could have serious implications. TTT Live has the details.
So, there are also many who came across who are gang members of Tren de Agua. We started to see things about man head getting chopped off, man digging up body and burning it and things. That is not a Trini gang. But the PNM left it so unmanaged and mismanaged and totally irresponsible that our country was reeling, not only with increased crime and murder and criminal gangs and drugs and guns, but with just illegality, wildness.
And he reminded that the consequences for choosing not to register will be serious.
So we have to be strict, we have to be right, we have to make people pay their fair due, but we have to be humane. And that is Kamala Prasad-Bisesa, brilliant, strong, and she rules and governs with her heart. So we want them to register. Those who don't